Hello there, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, we're going to tell you what the AEW locker room really thinks about MJF. We've got another story on the AEW locker room after that. Is it in chaos? Who are the leaders these days? We'll answer all of those questions. Another question we're going to answer is, was CM Punk really a draw for AEW? And then finally, we're going to wrap things up by talking about the AEW signing who has finally been added to that weird roster page on their weird website. Hi everybody, I'm Andy Murray.
I'm Michael Hamflett.
And this is the news. Let's kick things off by talking MJF. This is some good stuff coming out of Pro Wrestling Torch's Wade Keller over the weekend. It typically is. When it comes to backstage stuff in AEW, he's usually got some good scoop skis, and this is no different. And I thought it was particularly enlightening given recent goings on in that company.
Tumult.
Yes. Now, obviously, MJF, he was at the heart of one of AEW's bigger controversies earlier in the year. Although, compared to what has happened since then, maybe not such a big controversy.
It's quite sweet, isn't
it?
It's
just a tiny little thing
the
now.
Richard Curtis of the AEW backstage controversies. Love Actually and Notting Hill of their locker room.
It's just not causing too many problems compared to, the guys who had a fight and bit each other at All Out. But yes, contract stuff. Very public, you know the drill. He was away from June to September, all of that stuff. How is he viewed backstage now? Pretty well it seems. Pretty well. Here's what Wade had to say. MJF really isn't a problem in the locker room like Sammy Guevara has been, for instance, going straight for Sammy, or Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa have been. That's not him. He's actually less of a problem than the Young Bucks and Kenny. Kenny is more political than his reputation in terms of protecting his turf and not just being a laid-back kind of quirky guy. He's more political, and MJF is ambitious but not super political. And so that works to the locker room stability as well, especially if I am right in my speculation and my hunch and my belief that he has signed a multi-year extension and isn't just, saying that he hasn't.
3 qualifiers.
Yeah, there's
speculation,
lots of
hunch,
stuff
a belief.
Yeah,
That contract is
my gut. What's
isn't it?
my gut telling me?
What do we know about this deal?
So he goes on a little bit more, just talking about how he believes MJF did sign an extension. Obviously on TV, it's been, I have not signed an extension, I just got more money.
Yeah.
The Great Bidding War of 2024. It's very compelling TV.
Yeah.
If I'm MJF, right, and I have signed an extension, I'm absolutely telling everyone that I haven't.
Yeah.
Because it's more interesting and it's more dramatic. But he goes on a little bit as well, just talking about how he believes MJF could become like a locker room leader in 2023 and beyond, particularly when it comes to representing younger people on the roster. Because lest we forget, despite how incredible he is at pretty much every aspect of pro wrestling, MJF is only 26 years old. So, there you go. Sounds like a pretty positive dude to be having around.
Yeah, this obviously was probably welcome. This kind of news getting out was welcome for AEW in terms of the cycle of all the stories, because they were in need of a sense of stability, and more of that to come in this report. But MJF specifically, as you say, because of his age, fantastic, the perfect guy. I always think a lot of Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and that crazy 1997 locker room, kind of all having to be out the way so Steve Austin, The Rock, and Triple H could rise together, with Austin at the top, of course. I'm not going to go out there and compare MJF to Stone Cold Steve Austin, lest it explode the heads of some on one side of the culture war or the other.
Yeah.
But he does have that potential,
Yeah.
and certainly there is an existing Steve Austin in the likes of a John Moxley, and somebody coming in underneath him, and MJF will like this comparison, like The Rock that was coming in under Steve Austin. You can see how people at that age can quite easily fulfill that role if they're trusted to make money, if they're trusted to give you good matches, good action, and be a future figurehead. He is all of those things. So he fits the profile of a future locker room leader. And as you say, it does him no harm for the exactities of his financial situation to not be out there. The War of 2024 could be the most kayfabe thing going. It will still rule, even if it is. If it's real, more power to him, because he's going to make bank on it.
Absolutely.
All good, and you'd love to hear it for him specifically. I think.
Yeah, 100%. He's grown with the company, obviously. I think he's the best you could sit here and list a few wrestlers who've had more, 4-star matches or great incredible things they've done in the ring every single week, who have a higher volume. You could list people. I really ineloquently put that, but for me, MJF is the best TV wrestler in the world in terms of what he brings to the table in every single segment, from a character work to promos to the matches. He's great in the ring as well. I'm not trying to diminish that. It's just he doesn't have as many matches.
Picks his spots, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. As a John Moxley or a Will Ospreay does. So I think he's the best TV wrestler in the world. I think he's one of the wrestlers of the year. I think he is the crown jewel of that promotion in terms of someone they've, not built up from nothing, because he clearly came in very talented. Yeah. But someone who is technically kind of homegrown-ish after their time on the indies.
I think as well what we've learned from Brawl Out, which I really have fallen in love with as a phrase, is that AEW fans, especially for the brand, don't want somebody that kicks the cat, they want somebody that saves the dog.
Yes.
They want that locker room to be a sweeter place than the traditional Shark Tank that, say, Jim Ross would have presided over once upon a time, or Vince McMahon kind of desperately wanted from his talent. They want AEW to feel as nice on the inside as it often appeared for years on the outside. This helps that, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Wade Keller there listing off fight after fight, wrestler after wrestler where there's been argument. It's been one of them years for AEW. That kind of helped the brand, and there will be people that might be reflected in box office receipts and things like that long term. So the more you move away from that and back into the idea that this is a place where friends can collaborate and work together artistically, the better it is for everybody. Like the rising tide that raises all the ships.
And speaking of ships, Tony Boat. I don't know. the Ladmiral is on deck. Right, more from Wade here, Pro Wrestling Torch, of course. Talking a bit more about the backstage tumult, as we've coined it, in AEW, and who's emerged as locker room leaders in the wake of all of this. Well, you might have heard Chris Jericho recently saying that Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley have emerged as, he called them, team captains. That is the case here. They've kind of come out as locker room leaders in the middle of all this mayhem, this brawl out, all of that stuff. They obviously chaired, is that the right word? A talent meeting afterwards, and brought everyone back together. Here's the comment. One thing that I'm hearing from people who I talk to in AEW, active wrestlers and otherwise, is that one good thing that's come out of all of this is that the void in leadership, or the leadership slots, have been firmly filled by Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, and Bryan Danielson. None of the three is a perfect leader, but the three collectively are stabilizing the locker room. And I'm not going to do a long thing about the shortcomings of each of them as leaders, blah, 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 but they're in the right place. Yeah. They're the right guys for this specific time. He continued a little bit saying, like I said, not one of them is the perfect leader for this, blah, 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 but all three are good leaders, and collectively they can help steer the ship. This locker room and AEW is not in disarray, and I've been reporting this too the last couple of months, even though before the Punk thing, I was told that it's not as bad as the headlines make it seem. So yeah, there you go. He goes on and does acknowledge, you got to acknowledge things like Sammy, Andrade, Britt and Thunder Rosa and their beefs, and Eddie Kingston getting suspended for his fracas melee with Sammy and all of that stuff. So, things like that are still kind of bubbling away over here. But again, I would trust Jon Moxley to run every aspect of my life. So fair play. Fair play.
These are the exact three names you would have expected, and you would hope it would work. What sort of struck me as odd was that there was the big press release a little while ago from AEW about a restructure at the top, where there were new roles for people, and just in backstage capacities certainly. And it felt like the majority of the fight stories came after that.
Yeah, so they did.
Maybe internally that was proactive because people saw red flags, but these were not the people that could stop these little issues becoming far, far bigger ones. This now is obviously had to be reactive because so many things have already happened. But Chris Jericho's comments the other week were the most potent, weren't they? He had the veteran knowledge and experience to say to all of these younger talent that were maybe experiencing their first major role within, a major contracted role within pro wrestling beyond indie dates and the like, of whatever you think this is at the moment, it's still so much better than it could be elsewhere. I'll say this for Punk in that obviously now legendary press conference. One of the lines which I'm assuming was in kayfabe to MJF, was the grass is greenest where you water it. And I think that was one of the great lines from one of the great orators just that got lost in the middle of him doing a lot of awful, terrible things.
His mate biting Kenny Omega.
Yeah. But I thought that was just as relevant to this conversation here. This will be Jericho and Danielson and Moxley that have got so much experience of every other kind of wrestling and are trying to tell these wrestlers that don't, you might feel like you're rolling a 2, but in actuality you're probably rolling a 4 or 5 here. You've just got to feel it again. You've got to maybe, will that thought process back into existence, and I think it'll happen as well. I think it's crazy how quickly time just heals over the wounds, as we say, and as long as those three, and we now at least know 2 of them, aren't going anywhere for a long, long time.
Yep.
I think that's the best chance they've got right now. All this is until tomorrow when it turns out there was a new fight backstage we've already heard about. But hypothetically,
Willow Nightingale knocked out Tony Schiavone.
Yeah.
Something totally random.
Something went wrong in the Rampage segment and she's furious and it was just a swift fall.
Because hooked Angelo Parker.
Yeah, one of his wins was real. One of those big wins was he actually chose to do that. But yeah, so as of right now, if they can just get to the end of the year scandal-free, New year, new me and all of that. These are the right people at the top.
Yeah.
They are.
Absolutely. Senior wrestlers, been there, done that. Probably like almost a century of experience between
Can all
them.
still go, which really helps.
Can all still go.
Credible out there. It's not like...
all having good years.
Yeah, not to be disrespectful to Jericho, but if this had all happened like a year ago when like everyone was on him a little bit...
When he had a little less good faith. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Not good faith.
I don't think we're there now.
What I mean? Yeah. When he wasn't as much of a critical darling as he is at the moment, perhaps. Yeah. And obviously there are concerns with various people he's beaten that maybe he shouldn't have this year. But that's immaterial. We're gonna let's talk about CM Punk, right?
Yes.
Say what divisive guy, right? Say what you will about him. We've said it all several times over and over. I'd rather not do that again. But yes, controversial dude, seems to be on his way out of AEW. But whether you like his work, whether you like him, whether whatever, you can't deny that this guy's been a draw for AEW. And Brandon Thurston, the wonderful Brandon Thurston behind WrestleNomics, have prepared some information for WrestleNomics Radio over the weekend. It's just kind of like, what's the word I'm looking to? It's like a go-to set of graphics now that you can point towards whenever someone comes through with that bollocks. Yeah. Like Punk didn't make a difference to their business. Yeah. Because clearly he did. What we have here, and it is stuff that was kind of, you could have gone looking for this out there, but Brandon's done the research and collated it together, talking about the positive business impact that this guy did have now that he's seemingly on his way out. So we'll just run through them quickly. There's a graphic here with a bunch of quarter hours increases. I'm not going to sit here and go, well, on this date he increased it by 8% or whatever.
If you're dweebs like us though, dive in, because Brandon does amazing work. It's so much fun to pour through, isn't it?
Exactly. It's tremendous work. It would just take me 20 minutes to go through all of it on the video. Pay-per-view buys, boom, the 5 highest pay-per-view buys in AEW featured CM Punk on the card in featured matches. And I think things like All Out 2021, right? Obviously you had the added appeal of, you knew like Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson were probably coming in at some point. But the draw of that show was not Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega.
Nah.
It was CM Punk's first match in 7 years, obviously. Full Gear, Revolution, yada yada yada, Double or Nothing. Obviously, this year's All Out, he was on the card. A bit of a disappointing buys on that one, 139,000, but still the 5th highest in AEW history.
And even then, the experiment with the Moxley TV situation could have gone the other way.
Exactly.
They tried and failed a thing rather than just nailing it down to one single draw.
I think that poor buy rate, in my opinion, was a consequence of that failed experiment with the squash on TV and then going to this. I don't think it worked. Also, AEW's first free $1 million live gates came while Punk was in the company. Double or Nothing, All Out, and Forbidden Door. He wasn't on Forbidden Door, but the majority of the tickets were sold before the 1st of June, which is before he pulled out.
In Chicago, is that right?
In Chicago, baby. And he also, by the way, this year has had 4 of the top 6, actually, merch sales in AEW. All CM Punk t-shirts, dominating that. The other ones, amusingly, are Scissor Me Daddy Ass. And then FTR Living Legend shirt.
Has Brandon come through with the data from that cake shop yet as well to see how the muffin sales were boosted in the wake of the press scrum?
Well, I'm not sure how up on cake shop metrics he is.
She's closed Mondays and Tuesdays, obviously, but get in there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
There you go. But Brandon obviously does tremendous work with the business side of pro wrestling. Also, it should be noted as well that after the first dance, Tony Khan commented, I think we've paid for CM Punk already with merch sales and ticket sales, all of that stuff. You can fact check those figures if you want, but he made those claims. So I mean, you can't really argue with numbers. CM Punk was a business success, whether you think he's an asshole or whether you liked his work or not. Yeah,
CM Punk was not Steve Austin or The Rock, but then who else is Steve Austin or The Rock but Steve Austin or The Rock? There were not too many guys, I think, that had been out of wrestling for such a long time that could come back in and command that kind of, the numbers that you described, I guess, but that kind of attention. It felt it as well. This is the thing, now that the numbers, I feel, have confirmed what most people felt. When he was around, the product felt bigger.
Yes.
Everything felt elevated. He was a bigger star. It wasn't just that he'd had this absence. It was that he was this once 400-plus reigning WWE champion, and it wasn't a token reign or a token gesture. He was the world champion, and he was the top guy he wanted to be, wasn't he? John Cena will never cross that divide, and The Rock and Steve Austin will probably not, but he was always the one that could have and did. So in a sense, and we've debated, and we're right, by the way. This year-long run in ring-wise for me isn't up for debate. I really think it was incredible. I know some people will find fault, but I think it was just an incredible run.
That's a subjective thing, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. But this again brings around the sort of the business metrics to sort of Well, back up what Tony Khan said on night one, I guess, that this was such a great deal for him and a great deal for the company. It'll be talked about for years. There'll be people debating whether it was worth the ride, but financially for AEW, it does sort of explain at least why it wasn't. A lot of people would have just felt it was as simple as, well, the Elite were there first and the Elite's in the name of the company. You've got to get rid of Punk. These numbers explain, like, quite obviously why that wasn't the easy answer, and there was much more serious, nuanced conversations to have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very interesting thing to sit here and pick apart and analyse, especially now that he seems to be on his way up.
It doesn't hurt his negotiation.
No.
If he does get what he wants in terms of a non-compete clause being written out and Triple H knocking out, who knows? This doesn't hurt, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I get the feeling that we haven't heard the last of
Mr.
Phil.
Let's hope not. I'm putting my kids through college.
Last one here. It's kind of quick compared to the other ones. Josh Woods finally added to the AEW roster. Now, caveat, the AEW roster page, allelitewrestling.com, it's kind of out of date. People will leave the company and then be on it for ages and ages. People will come in and not necessarily get added for a while. So there's not necessarily anything too much to read into this. But typically, when someone is on there and they're new, it means they've been signed to a full-time deal. Usually. Previously, it had been reported that Josh Woods was on like a per-date deal. So maybe something has changed with regards to his contractual status. But he's been wrestling for AEW since last December. He's been paired with Tony Nese, obviously, recently, and Smart Mark Sterling. What they now, the Varsity Athletes. Yep. They lost to the Acclaimed on this week's episode of Rampage. That was their last match. 13-6 overall. He came in kind of through Ring of Honor. He was the pure champion when Tony Khan bought the company. He's lost that belt since then, but very highly regarded guy. And if this does mean a full-time deal, good for Josh, because I like him a lot.
Yeah, have we had the All Elite graphic? I know that
that
often means something, doesn't it? As well, that's representative, as you say, of the deal changing and the circumstances changing. It's nice though. This is a story of two things. This is a potentially really nice news for Josh Woods and to see that sort of thing confirmed, and also hi, you're a massive wrestling company. Get that website up to date. It's really good for your superstars, for your I think
superstars. Come on,
superstars. Sorry, for your wrestlers. I think from a morale point of view, for this to feel, I don't know, switched on. Cleared in, tightened up, all that kind of thing. I know the rankings have been de-emphasised on television, but for a while there, I haven't checked in the last couple of weeks. They weren't being updated on the website either.
Yeah, last time I checked, it was like a month behind.
It's worthwhile keeping on top of that. I know that WWE has different muscle in this regard, and it's got years and years of experience in its own team and departments, no doubt in Titan Tower in Stamford. But there are minimum expectations that I think, and this sort of stuff is. Hopefully a case of them being met a bit more. Josh Woods could and should feel great about this.
Yeah,
there's validation to it.
I agree, absolutely. On every single thing you've just said, in fact. Hey, thank you for joining us on today's Wrestling
Don't
News.
criticise if we've not updated something on WhatCulture.com and I come across like a massive.
Well, speaking of not updated, so I'm going to apologise for the lack of Twitter questions today. I completely forgot before heading into the studio, like a complete buffoon.
AEW Wrestling, get your website up to date.
Yeah, come on, guys. We get it together. We'll be back with those tomorrow. But yeah, thank you for joining us. You can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. You can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow me at Andy H. Murray, and the H stands for, hey, Shawn Michaels, I heard what you said about the bald community. I heard what you said about how God had made you bald, or the world had made you bald because of all the bad things you've done in your life. Let me tell you, son, being bald is a privilege that you clearly are not strong enough to carry. And my friend, I have been in touch with the bald elders. I have consulted with the bald elders, and we have decreed that you are not worthy of carrying this wonderful gift that the world has given you. As such, we have agreed that by the end of the week, Shawn Michaels, your full head of hair will be returned to you. That's right, you are hereby expelled from the bald community.
Okay.
What you said was a complete disgrace. It was absolutely disgusting. You're out. The bald elders have decreed it. I'm a bald elder too, by the way. Grey beard, all of that. Yeah. And listen, I sincerely hope that your next poo is a porcupine. See you later, Shawn.